we are talking to Misha Mansoor from the band Periphery, founder and lead guitar player of the band Periphery, also being active in other musical projects, and also being an entrepreneur in the MI industry as well. How are you doing, and how are you holding up in these, well, rather challenging times?
Thanks for asking. I'm doing pretty well, all things considered. They are challenging times, especially for certain people. A lot of our friends, unfortunately, people in the like a lot of crew guys and venue workers and things like that. I've been kind of fortunate, but I do have sort of a lot of different income streams. And I'd say that just in this one instance, I mean, I'd say I got very lucky, but I seem to have been a little bit protected from some of the worst things just because, and this is kind of the idea of having a lot of different income streams, is something bad happens, hopefully doesn't happen to all of them,
Perfect. So let's directly dive into the stuff that everybody wants to talk about, which is gear, obviously. So maybe talk a little bit about the signature line of guitars that you have with Jackson and how it is to work with such a big name in the industry.
Real quick question. When is this video going to be airing?
It's going to be airing at the end of this month,
Okay.
27th, 28th.
Okay, no, that's fine, because there's certain things maybe I shouldn't talk about, or at least not concretely. That's the reason I asked. Sorry, the question again, I apologize.
No worries. So maybe talk a little bit about the your signature line of guitars, because I understand that there are some high-end models and then there are some entry-level models, more affordable, and how it is to work with such a big brand name in the industry.
So yeah, I work with Jackson Guitars, and been working with them for a long time. They make my signature models, and I think when I started working with them, I sort of made my intentions clear that I wanted to create a guitar that was sort of a line of guitars, not just one guitar. And that was the eventual goal. Obviously, you grow into that. And we've been working together for so long, and we work so well together that it's grown very organically. But a lot of people ask why I work with Jackson, and funny enough, I'll tell you, like, I think there's a lot of companies out there that could have built me a good guitar. I wouldn't even say like Jackson builds the best guitars in the world or anything like that. What they do is we were able to create something really special because we see eye to eye. I work with a bunch of guitar nerds there, and it's just the rapport I had with them. And as I always say, like, when it comes to business, you want to work with people that you like and people that understand you. And those guys really understand me. So they're able to build me the best guitar because we understand each other. We have our shorthand. These guys that I work with that are designing the guitars are incredible guitarists. So if they think something doesn't play well, they'll tell me. Or if they think something's awesome, then chances are when I get it, I'll be like, wow, that's amazing. And it just makes the whole process so much faster. And it was still a pretty long process to design the initial guitar, because it took almost 3 years. But that's because I was just being extremely picky, and they put up with everything. They understood like how important it was to me to have like my signature guitar be my perfect instrument. So to me, like, that's what has made the relationship so special, and it's why I've been so happy working with them, and why I look forward. We have a lot of things planned. We have a lot of things in the pipeline. Some things I just can't talk about just yet, but you'll see soon enough. But it's always fun with them. Like, they're always thinking about the next steps, and they understand how I work and how I look at this, and they're totally on board. So I couldn't be happier, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that would have been my next question. What was the process like, going into all the different topics, such as wood, which hardware to pick next, and all that kind of stuff? Did you know what you wanted from the start, or was it kind of a forth and back? You said it took like 3 years. So I assume it was like a long period of going forth and back, shipping guitars from A to B, trying out things and stuff.
Yeah. Do you want me to get like really nerdy with this, or like more of an
Sure.
You'll get really nerdy? Okay. Yeah. So I'd say I was like 90% certain of what I wanted spec wise, but it's that last 10%, and trying things out. And there's certain things where it's just, options, or like, you know, just practical things. Like there's certain kinds of woods that would be nice, but it's just tough to source if you're trying to do a lot of these guitars. So you have to be strategic with a few of these things. But I knew, for example, you know, as much as people don't like basswood, um, or not people don't like basswood, as much as like people think it's like an inexpensive wood, people actually like it as a tone wood. It's just not a very pretty wood. You could just paint over it, right? Uh, but I actually found that like pretty much all of my guitar heroes were using basswood. I think it informed what I look for, like when I think of Steve Vai, John Petrucci, Guthrie Govan, Alan Holdsworth, Joe Satriani, all these guys like had basswood guitars, and I think it just sort of like made me like that. So I really wanted basswood, but this is like one of the difficulties. For example, is we found we couldn't really put basswood with a maple top. We were using such a thick maple top on the USA model. It's a 5/8 of an inch, which is, I don't know, like 300 centimeters or something, whatever. But it's a joke. But like it was so substantial that it was actually warping the basswood. So these are the things that, like, you know, you go in with specs that you like, but then you find out like, oh, this will actually make it kind of difficult because you'll have a bunch of guitar bodies that after they cure, they'll fail. So we switched that, I believe, to alder initially, and then eventually we did mahogany, and we did solid color guitars with just basswood. That way I can have my cake and eat it too. And this is where having a line of guitars is great. I wanted a bunch of unique features. Like, I think I was one of the first, if not the first guitar like to have a production model with a 20-inch radius. And that I took from Alan Holdsworth. He's one of my favorite guitarists, and that's what he used. I had one of his signature guitars, and I was like, this is so cool. If you play with low action and you play more technical stuff and you want the response to be even across the fretboard, the flatter radius is better. So 20-inch radius is like, once I started using that, I found it very hard to use anything else. I wanted stainless steel jumbo frets. I wanted the truss rod adjustment at the base of the neck where it's very easy to adjust. Just quality of life stuff. I wanted lumen lay side dots because from playing live, you know, it's so helpful to have that in the dark. When you have if you play with a light show, you understand like how helpful that stuff is. I love the super strat shape, and I wanted it to be like kind of pointy, but I wanted the carve on the back to be big, and I wanted to see if there was a way to do that without like messing with the integrity of the guitar. So we designed the heel to fit your hand, so you have upper fret access. It had to be a bolt-on. Like, I just love the way bolt-ons sound. They have this snappy attack, and neck throughs just don't sound right to me. And then we have like a lower horn, which has a ton of space for your hand. And on the upper horn, I wanted the pin to be at the top, but we had such a pointy shape that it was actually failing. So they engineered this like birch dowel to put in there so that it would be strong enough. And of course, all these guitars, the reason it took so long is I'm on the road testing these things, right? So sometimes jumping into the crowd, but definitely we're an energetic band, you know, and the guitar had to survive. It had to survive that, and touring from Europe to Japan to Australia and be okay. And you don't have any problems with the neck warping or anything like that. So I road tested this so that they could give me a production model, which is what I play live, by the way. I just ones that were supposed to go to stores or whatever, just come to me instead. And those are good enough to tour around the world. If you're a professional touring musician, you will have no issues. And yeah, then that's the USA model. Then the import model it's made in Indonesia in the Chord Factory. They did such a good job. I wasn't even particularly interested in that at first because I was like, I just want a good guitar. But again, this is where I trust the guys there. They're like, look, like, I know how you feel about this, but you have to try these samples out. And I was like, okay. And I tried them out. I was like, oh my God. Like, in fact, they were so good that I felt that we had to up the specs on the USA model because I was like, this is too competitive, you know, like we need to make the USA special. And then we upped the quality of the import, the Pro Series model, because we put a 20-inch radius on there and roasted maple neck and fretboard on that, which just gives you more stability, a super smooth neck. And it just made the guitar so consistent. So now I'm even using the Pro Series to record at home and all that. I'm recording like solo album and all that. My main 6 is a Pro Series, and I don't have to. I could use a USA, but it's just got mojo. So yeah, very long-winded answer, but like I knew what I wanted. It took some time to get the finer details together, but they were very patient with me, and we eventually nailed it. And they're my favorite guitars.
Sounds great. Absolute.
Apologies if I'm
very
being
detailed.
too long-winded, by the way. You can tell me to shut up, you know?
It's all good. It's all good. So looking at some of the specs of the guitars, I noticed that the caramelized, cooked, baked, there are different words for it. It's all the same thing. What's the point of doing that from your perspective?
Okay, so that's a great question. So when it comes to roasting the wood, caramelizing, baking, whatever you want to call it, there's two benefits as I see it. One is stability. You're cooking out the moisture, right? It'll actually make the body wood lighter. So we do it with a basswood. We cook out the moisture. It makes the guitar a little bit lighter, which I like. I like a light guitar. And actually, like, I mean, it's painted, but if you were to crack the finish off or whatever, like I've done in a show, you'll see it's actually like a darker brown color, which is nice. Brown's a good color. And then the other thing, and this is when it pertains to the neck with maple, it has got such a smooth feel. If you ever feel a roasted maple neck, you'll kind of understand. I remember playing one for the first time. I think it was a Guthrie model, actually. I was like, I need to get these on all of my guitars. And so we did. And that's the other thing is like, if I ever find something where I'm like, oh, this is better, like I'll just tell Jackson, then we'll just improve the model. They're very open to that, you know? So I feel like we're always iterating, a little bit like a German brand that I love called Porsche, which has been iterating and improving the 911 for like 50 years. Always just little improvements. It gets better and better. Well, I like to think we have the same approach, you know, with the guitar. And again, because you're removing the moisture, it actually is a more stable neck. So when you're on tour or in different climates, I actually find it withstands all of that way better.
Talking about specs and stuff that when you see something, you want to try it out, maybe on one of your own signature models. Any spec that you have in mind that you want to try out for one of the next models coming out? I mean, you don't have to talk in detail about stuff that's coming in the future, obviously, but any specs that, you know, popping your head that you're like.
Well, I don't want to give away too much. I've been playing a lot with Evertune bridges, and they are a bit of a double-edged sword because they are phenomenal, and I've been using them in the studio for years now. But I don't think they sound or play as good as a regular sort of like hardtail bridge. But my God, they make life in the studio so much. Anyone who's recorded knows how much time you spend tuning, and it's just the biggest time saver. So I like to have both in the studio. So that's something I'm probably dropping enough of a hint there that we're exploring. And, you know, I've always had a bit of a fascination with fan frets, but I found it's very tough to nail everything on that. It's because you're introducing this other variable. So now you have like a compound scale, and where is that neutral fret, and how does that affect the angle of the frets when, you know, if you're fretting chords on the low end, or how severe is it not only up on the upper frets, but on the bridge. I find like when the angle's too severe there, palm mutes sound kind of weird. And it's kind of, so that's something that I'd really like to crack, but I will not touch it until it's right. You know, like that's something that if it's not right, I'd rather not do it. And most of the time I found that sort of the standard flat scales have served me better just because I can get what I want out of them. But that's something that maybe down the line, if we solve that puzzle, then maybe that's something to look forward to, but no concrete plans yet.
Yeah, it pops right into my next question, which is about stuff like ergonomic shapes, fan frets. I know you're totally right. It's super difficult to find the right spot. Not only the kind of radius you want to have, where's the neutral fret. There are people that say it has to be the 12th fret. Some people feel more comfortable if it's the 9th. What's your general take on ergonomic shapes, fan frets? We spoke about that, but also maybe alternative materials like Richlite, carbon fiber, or Arium, as Aristides is making guitars out of that material.
So yeah, Aristides are those guys are good friends of mine, and they've sent me some guitars over the years. It's really cool stuff, but it is also very difficult. Like it's not something that I think you could just be like, oh, I want one of, like, the molds for those cost a lot of money. And like, I think if I was ever to go down that route, it'd probably be easier to partner up with them in some fashion because they are experts at that. It's not something that you could just sort of on a whim in the way be like, oh, instead of using alder, I'll use mahogany today. You know, like that's sort of the same, like using Arium or something like that. You need a specialist. So it's not necessarily that I'm not interested. It's just a little bit more difficult. Things like Richlight are interesting. Maybe I'd experiment with that down the road. There's not really a need to at the moment, because again, it's if I felt like I was missing out on something, or if I felt like very much like with the roasted neck, where I was like, ooh, like this is really something else. I have some guitars with Richlight fretboards and they're good, but I don't know if the expense is worth the difference that it might make. I'm not against it though. Carbon fiber I love obviously, but it's either expensive to do. Like actually my USA solid color models come with my bare knuckle Ragnarok pickups in a carbon fiber etch, so I do try to sneak it in wherever I can. But if I'm using real carbon fiber, that is a very expensive prospect. And I've played some carbon fiber guitars. I have a carbon fiber acoustic guitar. Again, you need a specialist for something like that. So maybe I'd get the effect rather than the real thing in that case. As far as ergonomic shapes, Tosin Abasi is one of my best friends. He's got Abasi guitars, which I'd say is like probably one of the best ergonomic modern guitar shapes out there. It's very different. It's sort of a love or hate design. I think it's really cool. But for me, I've always wanted a super strat. So my approach has always been like, how do I make the super strat more ergonomic? We even did little things like, for example, placing the bridge a little bit lower on the body, because the way I saw it, especially like the 7 strings of 26.5-inch scale, the difference between picking like here versus here is almost nothing. But the difference between fretting from here and here, that you'll feel. So the idea of like centering the, and like having the big carve on just on the back of the guitar, and the heel, like I call it a handshake heel, but basically taking as little space as possible. It's more about trying to refine the super strat shape, which is my favorite sort of guitar shape, to be more ergonomic, as opposed to like just going into a full-on sort of ergonomically designed shape where that is the sort of main goal. Again, never say never, but right now that's where my head is at.
Going into a different section of nerdiness, looking at your crazy home studio there, what's your current signal chain when you're recording guitars at home? And then connected with that, what are like the top 5 recording items, gear related, that you absolutely couldn't live without?
Okay, yeah. So I have a bit of an interesting signal chain, because as it stands, I have my Axe FX3 down here. You can't really see it on the camera, but like right now that's just a glorified DI and tuner. I love it, but what I've been doing lately is just taking a DI in and then using software. I have a software amp, the ToneForge Misha Mansoor amp, and also Nolly, my business partner at GGD, has a neural amp, and the neural stuff's really cool. So what I'll do is I'll actually record using and they send me all their stuff. So I'll just record using that stuff, because it allows me to capture the DI and edit the DI, but sort of put it together the way it would be. And the reason I actually have all these amps here is because I was starting to do this yesterday. We were recording Haunted Shores, like my side project with Mark from my band in Periphery. And we'd finished the song, and then we were taking the DIs and reamping them, which I use the 2 Notes Torpedo Reload as my reamp box. That is going, and I love those guys. 2 Notes are wonderful guys. That is then, going to the amp, which then goes to the Boss Waza tube expander load box, which I really love. Like, I think that's my favorite load box. But actually doesn't have a cab. I don't have a cab sim. I'm running the GGD Zilla cabs. That's a plug for my own company there. But like, I love that. I think they're the best cab sims. It's pretty much all I use, because it's hard to use any other cab sims at this point. And it's not just because it's my company, because I don't care. When it comes to a mix, I just want to use whatever's the best. but these work really well. And then the beauty of having it in the system is I can change the cabs on the fly. So it's sort of committing to as little as possible. But that's where I'll run into amps. I was experimenting with the Butter Slacks. I think we ended up using the Omega Granifier amp, which is pretty funny because I think for one of the songs I was using the plug-in version, but the real thing does have that little extra edge. And I've got my PV Invective over here, which you can't see, which is phenomenal. That's sort of my bread and butter when I'm reamping, but every now and then you like to change it up, right? But for gear, I can't live without. I mean, I guess the Axe FX is probably one of those things. Like I've been, big Fractal fan since very early on, and like it's a phenomenal unit. My Horizon Devices Precision Drive, like I basically put this in front of any amp. It just makes it sound like my sound, and it tightens up. If you're ever in a lower tuning, if you're tuning down, like this is a godsend. It'll make any amp basically work. So I have to have that. You can't see them behind here, but my Amphions, the Amphion 218 monitors, never been so happy with monitors before. I've had them for a handful of years now, and it's just I've actually just stopped thinking about monitors. So those I really need. I've got here, actually, I'll show you guys really quickly. This thing's probably older than my dad. It's a EP2 Echoplex, and I just abuse that thing. It's trusty. It works. It's in good condition. It works well. I'd be really bummed if I didn't have that. How many pieces of gear are we at right now? I guess my signature guitar, I'd have to have like, a 6 or a 7, one of my signatures. Is that 4 or 5? I haven't been counting.
I think we're at 5.
And let's throw in, because I use so much synths, like let's throw in the Moog Sub 37. Because like as far as analog synths go, that thing is just a beast. Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape there. Between all that, I could get a lot done.
Yeah, while we're talking about analog stuff, I've noticed that a couple of guys, including you, who back a couple of years ago were like on the forefront of using high-end amp modeling, such as the Axe FX. Guys like you, guys like Tosin, like slowly moving back to real amplifiers and having a pedal board, which is cool. I mean, I personally am a huge fan of amps, and I want to have a loud amp behind me. What's on your personal pedal board at the moment, and what kind of pedal, apart obviously from the Precision Drive, can you not live without?
So it's interesting because I get this question all the time. It could be sort of summed up as like, do you prefer analog or digital? And the answer is I love both. There are contexts where I can't live without the Axe FX. So live, we're just using Axe FX because it makes life so simple. And we tour all over the world, and it just saves us a ton of money to just be able to take it in our bags with us, and like have the same sound. We have our switching run off a laptop, so we don't do any pedal board switching. It's all, and we're wireless completely, so we could stand anywhere and play a show, and all the switching is done by the computer. And once you do that, you sort of don't miss pedal boards anymore. But at home, I have a pedal board. At home, I keep things very analog, and then maybe if I have like a good chain going, I'll go into the front of the Fractal or something like that, just to have that same sound. And again, I think with the digital stuff, it's great. It's so convenient. But there is an aspect of like someone else could just dial this in, like, and when you create these sort of like, I don't remember the settings I put on. I just dial it in by ear every time because I feel like you're locked into that, and maybe this is a little bit the vinyl of our generation. I feel like it will cycle. I find myself more digital, going back to analog, and it just cycles back and forth. And that's why, because it's a very tactile thing. And then you have the digital thing, which is just, it's all powerful and all knowing, but it's just kind of there. And it's sometimes nice to introduce limitations. On the pedal board, pedals I can't live on. I actually have 2 Flux Echoes, Horizon Devices Flux Echoes, one before the gain stage, one after the gain stage, because that is the secret with that pedals. Run 2 of them. I have a super secret pedal, which it's a prototype for Horizon Devices. I can't talk about it, but I can tell you it has not left. It's in the first slot, and it has not left my pedal board it's pretty much good to go, but it has not left my pedal board since I put it on there, and it's pretty much always on. So maybe that'll clue you in as to what it is. I've been really digging the Strymon Volante pedal that I got. Like that, I just bought that, and I just really like it. And a super secret pedal that I really like is the Bogner Harlow. Very, very cool pedal. And not a lot of people know about it, and it's kind of hard to describe what it does, but what I'll say is it sits somewhere in between an overdrive and a compressor. And it's got a Neve circuit in it, so it's a very colored sounding pedal, but it I don't know, it's a mojo pedal. It's a really cool pedal, especially if you're trying to do like clean or like slightly push clean stuff. I like that a lot. Ooh, and there's another pedal that since I put it on my pedal board has not left. Absolutely love this. The Chase Bliss Automaton Preamp Mark II, I think is what it's called. I don't know if you've seen that. It's got the moving sliders. That pedal's cool. And it sounds phenomenal. Like short of like high gain. I mean, if you put a precision drive in front of it, you can actually start to get into like genty territory. But like for anything sort of like clean mid gain pushed like and to kind of like rock gain, like oh, it's just awesome pedal. So those would be sort of my pedal board mainstays.
Sounds good. Sounds exquisite. So talking about Horizon devices, you said there's something coming up very soon. You cannot talk about it, obviously. I'm not gonna guess what it is, although I have a pretty good idea what it might be.
I think you might. I think, like the pedal nerds will probably figure out what that is, but yeah.
So moving on to, I mean, we're in a tough situation right now. How is band life these days? Are you guys working on new stuff? You mentioned that you're working on your solo stuff and Haunted Shores. Are you producing other bands? Any kind of?
So it's funny. Normally, I don't produce. I kind of swore off producing bands. I guess there's probably one or two people that I'll make an exception for. One of those people, as I said, Tosin's one of my best friends. So I just did 5 songs. I just produced 5 songs with Animals as leaders. I did the first album with Tosin. The third album, I did like 8 songs. He wanted to work together again. I seem to do the odd numbered releases for whatever reason. So it seemed fitting to do it again. And my work is done on that. Actually, I just turned in all the stuff. They're recording it right now. And I think Javier's mixing it actually. But they're sending me, the files, and that's sounding great. So I'm very excited for people to hear that because I don't know. Tosin and I have great chemistry, and actually this time the whole band were involved, which was great. It was such a great experience, and super excited for people to hear these songs. It's in these times you kind of have to adapt, and I like to adapt. There's a lot to be upset about, but I sort of maybe cope with it by just looking forward and looking, okay, well, so what can we do? And I figured, well, if we can't tour, then I'm just going to try to be as creative as possible. So I made a big push for the solo album, just recording with Haunted Shores. Jake and I, from the band, also have a project called 4 Seconds Ago. And the plan is to get that going for another release. So just trying to just be as creative as possible. I'll say I have to really thank our fans, especially the Periphery fans, for being so supportive. And, we've been selling a lot of merch, so that's helped a lot there. I don't know what the talk is in Germany, but at least over here, like the talk is touring is probably not coming back till fall 2022 at this rate. And touring is obviously very difficult because it's one thing where you really hope to get a lot of people close together, hopefully moshing. So it's probably one of the tougher situations to bring back, especially if your shows are bigger. So, and the mathematics have to make sense. If they told us like you could tour, but you'll get 20% of the people coming out because that's all that can fit, that mathematics probably won't work. We'll probably lose a lot of money. So it's just not worth doing at that point. So we're just going to wait and see. And in the meantime, I'm just going to try to be as creative as possible, spend time working on the businesses, which I have a lot of fun with, both Horizon Devices and GGD, like they're very creative. They're both passion projects. So I just, I do it for free. But like it's good that like I have these other things to keep me busy, and I've had a pretty busy year as a result.
When you are working in the studio and you're working on a project, what's your involvement like? Are you pre-producing the stuff? Do you do some kind of an advanced demo, or are you also involved in mixing and mastering? What kind of percentage do you get with most of the projects?
So yeah, that's a good question. I'm very involved with the writing, I'll contribute. I'm usually programming all the drums. We're just pre-production, high quality pre-production demo. So that's why my role, I'm wearing a few different hats. What I'm not particularly interested in at all is sort of like editing, mixing, mastering. And there are professionals that could do that. So I just enjoy the creative side. I like creating with people. So just making a song happen, anything that's involved with that and anything I need to contribute. Sometimes it means I'm writing quite a bit of stuff, writing layers, writing orchestral sections, playing bass, programming drums, doing quite a bit. But sometimes I don't have to I only do what's required. I want to be I want to involve myself as little as I need to, but as much as the song needs to be complete. And obviously, I want whoever I'm working with to be happy. So I'm not trying to just impose my sound. I'm just trying to do whatever's right for them and whatever's right for their vision of the song. And I'll suggest stuff, and sometimes they'll be like, yeah, that's not really working or whatever. But generally speaking, I work with people where, we're on the same wavelength. So that very rarely happens. We're usually just getting very excited the whole time. And that's also why I don't produce people outside of, I'll do side projects and, I'll produce the periphery sessions and whatever. But I know that those are going to go great. And I know working with Tosin and all that will go great. And outside of that, I'm like, I only want it to be fun,
Cool. Well, that was actually my last question in the catalog. I want to thank you very much for carving out the time to talk to us, and we wish you all the best for the upcoming projects and for all the industry projects as well, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.